Alright guys, what is up? What is up? Today we are going to be talking about money and spirituality, finances and spirituality. Is money related to anything spiritual? It's just a thought, because a lot of people know, I come from the field of psychology, and I kind of believe, that there are things that are like just biological stuff, or stuff that's organic and just kind of develops naturally, so that maybe we have tendencies towards certain things, physical things. Like if you take physical health, for example, because the job I'm working in right now, it focuses a lot on physical health, people coming out of the hospital. And again, I'm not a blame the victim type of person, so I don't want this to sound like I don't want it to sound like I have it all together and I'm just like crapping on other people, saying like, oh, if you have any kind of mental health or physical health situation going on, you did something, this is you're wrong, you're bad. Or if you have some financial situation going on, you did something, you're wrong, you're bad. My mental health, my physical health, my financial health is not perfect. It definitely needs improvement. I definitely, have like the same types of, I guess you call it like self-control related issues from anybody. I live in LA. I live in a major city. Pretty much anything I want access to is at my fingertips. Like either at the push of an Amazon Prime button, or just buy a ticket here, take an Uber there. I'm not that limited, you know. Um, where I live and what I have access to is, I don't live in some rural area where it's like if I want to go to a Walmart, I gotta drive an hour. I don't live like 2 hours from the airport. I don't live, you know, far from anything really that I want to do. I mean, like, if I'm visiting certain people, yeah, I live far from them a little bit, but pretty much anything I would want to do is right around me. I can get it or get it to me pretty much as fast as I want to. Food, anything, even if it's like substances, anything, alcohol, weed, shrooms, anything. I could just get it delivered to my house within an hour or so. Any type of food, pretty much. Anything. So I'm not saying that that's not an issue for me. Because it is. Like it's easy to do a lot of impulsive stuff when you just have to click a button and it comes to you. And it's easy to kind of lose track of what the plans were for the money, when it's easy to just click a button and like, oh yeah, I think I need this. I think I'm running out of this, or I want this thing that I just heard about or saw or something, and let me just buy this real quick. Let me just buy this right now. I don't know. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, so I take my job for example. I'm often looking at the patient information that comes in from their discharge from the hospital. And, a lot of it's elderly people, so it's like it makes sense, once you're like in your 90s and stuff. But I'd say most of the range of people I work with, it's probably 60s, late 50s to 60s and 70s. Probably 60s is probably the most age ranges where I see. And I'm thinking, okay, is that a common age for people to start going into the hospital? And if so, why? And the other day, I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I don't want it to sound this way. that I'm trying to be like a jerk, like judging. I'm sitting in judgment. I'm not perfect, you know. If I went on Caleb Hammer's show and showed my finances, he'd be screaming at me too, you know. If I went on, you know, some other type of talk show and people were saying like, oh, like she does this or she does that or she gets in my way this way or that way, you know, I'm pretty sure people around me have complaints about how I am and putting up with me and stuff, and I get annoying or I'm not, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. You know, my weight is overweight. You know, I'm in a health group, and you know, I got the message last week. The guy was saying, you know, why don't you try and do something different? You know, because you know your weight's kind of staying the same. And I was like, well, yeah, like I'm seeing a chiropractor because I got these back issues, and you know, I after this past weekend of walking all over around New Orleans and stuff, and in the airports Friday and Sunday, my back actually felt quite a lot better. Monday was the first day yesterday where I was working, and I realized I was like, wow, my back actually isn't like in a whole lot of pain compared to what it was feeling like the weeks before since I started working this job, working from home, sitting in this chair. My back isn't you know in as much pain. And maybe it's the exercises. I didn't do the exercises so much from the chiropractor, but I definitely walked. That's the main thing that I noticed. I did more than any of the days of the past few weeks. Like I did go to the gym some days, but I was wondering, you know, why is this not, you know, helping my back adjust, you know? And it's like maybe I'm not doing enough, like running, walking, you know, elliptical, treadmill type cardio. Like mostly I just do that kind of stuff just to warm up. Like I warm up on the elliptical or something like that, or like not really treadmill. Mostly different types of. There's like a variety of types of ellipticals. I don't know what they're called, but I'll usually use an elliptical for like 5, 10, 15 minutes, rarely 20 to 30 minutes. And then I'm more into like lifting and stuff, so I usually go to that. But, you know, it's the walking, I think, that is going to help me. And you know, since December when I injured my back, I think I didn't really even notice that. You know, and it's not like I never go to the gym, but, you know, so that's what I'm saying. I'm not perfect. You know, I'm sitting around complaining, oh, I got back pain. Oh, I got back pain. Like, take a freaking walk, you know? Like, you know, so what I'm trying to say, okay, so I was in the airport, you know, waiting, you know, outside the bathroom, you know, for a family member to come out of the bathroom. And, you know, you see people walking, you see people walking out. And just like a thought came to my mind because, you know, I have friends from Japan. I know a lot of people from Japan, and I know the culture from Japan is different, and they do kind of have a different kind of view on like weight and health and things like that. And I do watch a lot of travel, you know, vlog type content, and you know, the topic of obesity in America comes up. So that topic just kind of like in my head, kind of like flashed to my head somehow, and I was just looking and just like are Americans really obese? And I was just kind of looking at the people around, walking around in the airport, and I was like, yeah, there's quite a high percentage of people that you just see at a glance, just walking past that are not in the best looking of physical shape. And there was a large percentage of people, and I was like, I wonder if I could count the percentage of people. That was a thought that kind of crossed through my mind, but then like, you know, my mind kind of went elsewhere, and I started just like daydreaming about just, you know, something else, and I never really came back to that thought. So I was going to try to count 100 people and see out of 100 people that just passed me by, how many of them seemed like they were, you know, in a pretty maybe health that looked like their range of health was maybe not maybe ideal for what their doctors would probably prefer for them to be. But not in a judge. I don't know. I don't want it to come out like I'm like, oh, I'm fat shaming or whatever. Like, I'm overweight. Like I'm working on it, but what I've been doing hasn't been fully working. But am I surprised? No, because I kind of have a tendency to get a little bit of munchies and eat a little bit too much or snack a little bit too much. We usually get these large boxes of chips and cookies and stuff, and I kind of told my mom, I was like, can you keep this big box in your room, because I don't want it anywhere near me, because I don't want to eat it. And then she was like, oh, like, we don't have to buy them anymore. And I was like, okay. But I was just like, I don't want, these crackers, like 250, 300 calorie, like, chips and crackers and sodas and all this kind of stuff. Like, I don't want it near me, because I'm going to eat it if it's in the house. And I don't need to. And, if it's there, I'm going to eat it at least once or twice a week. Sometimes even more. And it's like, I don't need to be eating this stuff. Like, maybe once a week, like, and that's like a maybe. But I don't really need to be having cheat days. So, I take all these topics and I start thinking, and I'm like, okay, I'm in the physical health world. I'm constantly seeing, diagnoses and kind of what leads to these diagnoses. A lot of it's intestinal stuff, which I don't know if it's related to like eating habits or what, but, I also watch, I think I talked about it on here before. I also watch Caleb Hammer's videos a lot. I find them motivational for my own spending habits. And he looks at people's finances, and I was like, man, I could never go on a show like that. It's I like to pretend like I have it all together, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm making good strides. But if somebody looked through my actual bank, they'd be like, you didn't need to buy that, you didn't need to buy that. I'm probably buying stuff that I don't need to buy. I am keeping better track of it, but there's there's I don't really need to pinch pennies, and it's hard to try to pinch pennies when you don't necessarily have to do that. But I do have a number that I'm trying to hit as far as savings by Halloween, and I don't see myself getting there if I'm not pinching pennies, honestly. So I just, I just was kind of thinking about, is money a spiritual thing? Because usually people talk about it as like a behavioral, psychological thing. But when I think about behavioral and psychological things, I'm like, are those not spiritual things? And is physical health not a spiritual thing? Like, you know, there's, I don't know, what we consume or what we feel like consuming kind of tells us a lot about ourselves, I think. How we feel like spending our energy, I think it tells us a lot about ourselves. I might be wrong, but I do think that it does. I think, I got this alarm. Let me turn this alarm off. I think, or maybe I should just say it's possible that you know, okay, if I want to sit and watch violence or sit and watch horror or sit and watch just some, I don't know, like, what is it that makes a person want to sit and consume that kind of content? Is it, you're bored, so you want something, to kind of give you a little bit of a jolt to your system, or, because I feel like when you're sad, you don't want to like listen to Adele when you're like in the middle of a breakup or something, because her songs are depressing. Or when you're sad, there's certain stuff you don't want to do. You want something that's maybe funny when you're not in a good mood. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe people like depressing things when they're in a depressed mood. I don't know. But I do think that the way we consume food, content, the way we practice sleep habits, if we're in a good mental state, we practice those things differently than if we're not in a good mental state. I do think that, at least for myself. It's almost like when people say if you're deficient in certain things, you want to eat certain stuff. So, say if you have a severe like iron deficiency, wanting to eat ice chips is one of those cravings, or you know, if people remember how it was when you were younger, when you used to eat sugar, it used to be like, little kids love sugar. And then I've tried to eat some of the stuff that I used to love as a child, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how I used to eat this stuff. Like, it's gross, there's too much sugar, But certain types of foods are addictive, I've noticed fast food, different sodas, certain stuff is really hard to cut out. And for me, having like chips, like Lay's, Doritos, Cheetos, that kind of stuff, or cookies, Oreos, Chips Ahoy, those Nutter Butters, just having like snacks around, for me, that's not a good situation. It doesn't help me, I don't feel like it helps to have snacks around. So when it comes to finances, it's like, well, a lot of the stuff we're paying for, we pay for the apps, we pay for the internet, we pay for the devices to watch the stuff. We pay for, and it's almost hard not to have a device where you would be watching movies or whatever, because you kind of almost need the devices. Like, if you're in school or if you're working certain jobs or whatever, you probably need a laptop, you probably need a computer of some kind. Because, I mean, I don't know what campus libraries are like, but I know public libraries, at least in my area, they're a lot more limited than they used to be. Like, there's one near me that doesn't open till like noon. And it's like, what happened to when they used to open at like 9 in the morning or whatever? Like, if you're a college student and you don't have a computer, I mean, I can't imagine not being able to use my own personal computer and having to rely on the library that doesn't open till noon. It's like, you're basically wasting half the day that you might, if you wake up early, you're wasting half the day that you could be working on a paper or something. I mean, you can write it hard copy by hand and then type it, but still, it's like, that might be double the work depending on how you think. And then, so that's a challenge. And then, you know, so you can get by with no laptop, but or like a PC, like a desktop or something, but that might be hard. And even phones, it's like, because the phones do everything, like, yeah, maybe you can get a phone that doesn't have apps, that just makes the phone calls, but then you'd have to have like multiple devices. You'd have to have some like small little tablet that has apps or something, and then like just like a flip phone, so that you could separate out, not using the apps if you don't want to and you just want the phone itself. Like, just to separate it out would be kind of a bit of a hassle, honestly. So I don't really know what people think about that, but I don't know. Like, I'm just thinking, the thought came to my mind, our finance is a spiritual issue, because I've never heard anybody really talk about it. I've heard that, the Bible, the Quran, like different books, do have passages to kind of tell you about money handling, how to, there's a lot of charitable types of topics, trying to avoid greed, avoid just chasing money, and, trying to avoid, borrowing money, debt, all that kind of stuff. And I was listening to one of the more recent Talmud teachings from Baba Metzia, and it's talking about like kind of like lenders and like people who loan versus borrowing versus collateral versus and some type of exchange for payment for stuff and things like that. It's kind of talking about um, um, it's honestly just talking about uh, um, like loaning and borrowing. Um, and it gets me thinking, like when I watch Caleb Hammer and just hear what people spend on, like just hear, like when you binge watch Caleb Hammer episodes, like one after the next, you start noticing a pattern. I'm like, are Americans really spending that much money on like food delivery and fast food and apps and in-app purchases and I guess those Klarna type of things, like where you make payments on something, like 4 or 5 or 6 or however many payments on something. Say you buy your groceries and then you spend $200 worth of groceries and then you pay it out in like $40 installments or whatever, like installment payments on stuff. Now I understand not everybody makes enough money to meet inflation's demands, and that's not really the situation I'm talking about. Is when the inflation just suddenly out out outweighs what you make. That's a different situation than you make. Like the math says that if I just see how much money I make, and when I pay for rent and food and car, and however much it takes for transportation, all those things mean that if I'm only paying for those, I have money left over. And then when you look at the bank, it's like negative all the time. It's like that is what I'm talking about. Is more like what's going on there, you know. And the debt might have already been there, and it might return when people get out of it. But it's just something that I think is worth looking at, because I know what it's like to be broke, to have no money, to be worrying about, oh, I gotta have this payment versus that payment, or like postpone this one, or open a new bank account so that I can quickly shift my money into that account so that I don't get all my money withdrawn by all these debts right when I get paid or whatever, and like try to like maneuver around the debt situation, and always saying like, oh, I'm going to take out this loan, and because I need like $400, so let me take out $2,000, and then I'm going to owe a bad rate of I'll owe back $3,000 of the $2,000, but I can pay it back next month, and then I don't pay it back because whatever reason, and then it just gets harder and harder and harder. It's like it's just the math part of things. It's important. It's important to kind of do the math. But yeah, I'm not trying to be a jerk and like blame people and be like, oh yeah, like if you're like this, you're messed up or whatever. Like all of us, it seems like, are pretty much like this. It seems like it's rare that there's anyone that's kind of like got it all together. The way I see it is, if a person wouldn't want to go on that Caleb Hammer show and just expose their finances, then they're probably not being very responsible. And I'm not saying even like share how much you make or whatever. Like I think Hans Kim went on there and he didn't really share exactly how much he makes, and that's personal, But I'm just saying, like, if you wouldn't want somebody going through your debts and your purchases and things like that, then you know if it's an embarrassing thing, then there's probably a reason why. It's almost like, um, have you ever had somebody take your phone, like like you hand over your phone because you're gonna show them a picture or something, and then they keep like scrolling? I've had somebody do that to me before. That scrolled like 5 or 6 or so pictures, and then he was like, "Oh, like I don't want to be just like going through your phone," and I'm just like, "Whoa, like." He's just gonna take my phone and scroll. And I was just thinking, like, I don't even know what's in there. Like, I don't know what I've been taking pictures of. Like, I don't pay that close attention, but I don't know what I mostly take pictures of food that I eat, because I say that I'm doing that to track it, but I'm not tracking it anywhere. I'm not entering it into my Habit New app or anything like that. Um but every so often I look at it and then I'm like, okay, let me see which meals I ate this week and stuff. um but yeah, I don't really know. Like, even with like pictures, it's not like I'm even taking like pictures of like nudes or something like that in the bathroom or whatever, or weird pictures of stuff. It's like, but sometimes it's like, do I want somebody seeing the pictures I take without me giving them permission? Or would I want someone to see my emails or Instagram stuff? Or like, I don't really post online too much, like at all, hardly, like once or twice a year maybe, if that. But would I want someone seeing my DMs? Would I want someone seeing my text messages? I mean, I don't think I really send things that are like too provocative or anything, but still, it's like there is that personal aspect of it where it's like, I kind of don't want everybody involved if this isn't for them, if the message isn't for them, if the picture isn't to them or related to them, or if they weren't there, I maybe don't want to share it. And I think finances get that way too. It's like people don't want to share it, people don't want to talk about it. People know they need help, but then to get the help, you have to kind of talk to somebody, and then they're going to ask you all kind of personal questions about your spending. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a complicated topic, and I'm not trying to like financial shame people or health shame people or whatever. It's just a question, I'm wondering. That just hit my mind this morning, and I started wondering, is financial stuff, is it related to spirituality? Because I can tell, okay, when I can't focus, something is up. When I feel like I want to eat poorly, something is up. When I feel like I don't want to exercise, something is up. When I can't really sleep properly, something is up. Like, I can tell when something's up, even if I might not know exactly what it is. And so, if I can't control my spending, doesn't that mean something is up? If I can't get rid of certain apps, like, doesn't that mean that there's some kind of addictive tendency toward it? If I can't not have it, you know? I mean, it takes an adjustment. It's just like stopping eating chips or stopping drinking soda. It's like, you're gonna miss it for a bit. But if I can't avoid Instagram on a Saturday, I don't know. Like, and Instagram doesn't even cost money. But I don't know. It's just food for thought. Um, I don't know when I'm posting these episodes. I don't know. I'm using these new weird things with Spotify. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure this out eventually, but for now, we'll see when I post this. But just food for thought. Think about it. Think about it. You don't have to agree or disagree. I don't even know what I think. I'm just putting the questions out there.